Okay, welcome back. And I thought I'd have a meaningful Ask Mark the Artist session. Um, so this will be a longer video and not a short video in a cynical attempt to catch the algorithm and get 1,000 views, which occasionally happens. And I'm quite happy to admit that. I'm a cynical human being. I'm not really, I'm an artist. Anyway, so but you know what I mean. It's good for the ego, isn't it? It's good for the ego. Like, oh look, 1,500 people have viewed that video. They might not like it, but it's just like, great. Look at me. I'm doing something useful with my life. So, without further ado, I'm going to answer a question from. This is another question from Killer Kyle. So, if you refer to the short question, he asked me about. It's on the shorts. So, and he asked me about Homer da Vinci, and now I'm assuming it's something that's some sort of online artist, or it's a combination of Leonardo da Vinci, Homer Simpson, and presumably the guy that wrote the Odyssey. Because actually, the Odyssey has impacted my life because it's probably the only ancient Greek thing that I've ever read. Pretty hard going though. It doesn't translate well into English, I don't think. I could be wrong, or maybe I just had a bad version of it. But there's this like anomaly where a character meets another character, and then they just ask a diatribe of questions one after the other, and you're just like, I can't. And when they ask them in sequence, then they answer in sequence, and I can't remember what the question was for the answer, so I have to constantly refer back to the previous paragraph, and that was hard going, but rewarding because it gave me a sense of superiority that I've read a classic. Yeah. So, that's what happens, isn't it? People, look how cultural I am. I've read a classic. God damn it. Anyway, so without further ado, I'm going to answer an actual question. And Homer Simpson has impacted my life greatly. I've watched probably most episodes of The Simpsons, and a lot of cultural references, and even some quite historic. I mean, the word perspicacity I got from Lisa Simpson, and I use it all the time. It's like, I think The Simpsons was great. I've not been a fan of the last sort of few years of The Simpsons. I think they've just run out of ideas. So either that or you know, they definitely run out of ideas. But I think The Simpsons was, great. And if you're not a Simpsons person, you should probably just watch some early episodes of The Simpsons. And Da Vinci, yeah. I don't really feel qualified to analyze Da Vinci in any meaningful way. It's esoteric, scientific, and it's a language I do not understand myself. I think the man was just a genius, and he's so far above he's so different to my understanding that I could not begin to analyze what he achieved. Maybe one day, if I get smarter, if I read more, if I clever up, who knows? So I just don't. There's some things I just don't feel qualified to comment on, and Leonardo is one of them. So okay, right. I think that's the longer answer to the question. And if there is an artist called Homer da Vinci, in the words of Lemmy from Motorhead, never heard of her. Right. Without further ado, I've said that about 4 times, but I like it. It's a cool phrase. I'm going to answer another question from Killer Kyle. Have you done / will you try to create art influenced and / or visualizing music? I like that. It's a complex question, but it also makes a lot of sense. There's a follow-up to that. Basically, specific tracks, genre, albums, and artists. Well, The main one that comes to mind is about 4 or 5 years ago, I did an entire series of paintings themed around one particular song by A Flock of Seagulls called Remember David. I, I got fascinated by the fact that A Flock of Seagulls seemed to have one or two very standout tracks, and oh no, they probably got about 10 standout tracks, and then it's almost like they didn't do any other music, or I wasn't aware of it. So I was listening to album tracks and things, and I was just like, nah, I don't like it, don't like it. And then all of a sudden, this crazy song came on, Remember David, and I was like, and it was very esoteric and weird and, you know, new agey. And I just had that on repeat for about 2 or 3 months, and I was just painting these paintings, just churning them out in response to this song, and they're not in my usual style. So I sold them as a different name. I created a pseudonym, Alan Flock, and just those, because they were not my style. They were very different. So Alan Flock works out in Pythagorean numerology as a 22. So I did that on purpose because Alan is my granddad's first name, and obviously flock comes from a flock of seagulls. So that was just a weird little music-led crazy thing that I did. Well, it may appear crazy, but you know, I do everything in like if I get the opportunity, I always like do things in what the Pythagoreans believe were divine numbers. So that's, you know, if I can't think of it, if someone asks me to think of a number, I'll just go, oh, well, 11 or 22 or anything that's a double number, 33, 44, etc., etc. Just from a few years ago when I got into numerology, I didn't get into it. I just read up on it. I thought this is absolutely fascinating. I don't really believe in anything, but I do find things absolutely fascinating. I find like the sort of things people believe in fascinating. So, yeah, that was quite a thing. And whether you believe in numerology or not, every single Alan Flock painting I ever did flew off the shelf. I just sold them all. Everyone loved those more than my actual regular art. So I stopped making them because you should love my proper art. What is me? Anyway, so. Yeah, I've had various pseudonyms over the years. If I have what's called an artistic break, so you just start doing something in a different style, because if you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, you almost like stagnate. So then that's when music comes in real handy, because music can really allow you to get out of yourself if you get into the moment. I think anyway. So other music that's particularly influential. I quite like Danzig. I often put Danzig on when I'm working because it's heavy, it's full of energy, it's very dark. That's when the black comes out. When Danzig's playing, I'm like, right, time to mix up some black. You know what though? I haven't used a lot of black recently in my paintings, so maybe it's time for some more Danzig. Craftwork. I make a lot of stuff to Craftwork. Particular favourite tracks include Computer Love and obviously Sie ist ein Model and sie sieht gut aus. I don't know if that's violating copyright. Don't you have to do it for over a minute to violate copyright? Yeah, I don't know. Let the algorithms figure it out. Joy Division, yeah. I did a whole year of painting only listening to Joy Division when I first started, the year after I left university. That was that. But that gets very depressing after a while. It's like Nirvana. You can listen to a whole album of Nirvana and you're fine. But if you listen to 2 in a row, you're gonna feel down afterwards. Joy Division's probably got a bit more of a shelf life than that. But by the time you get to the Eternal, if the Eternal's playing, it's like, hang yourself to sleep. Don't do that. I don't think people should do that. But that was a joke. Haha. Not a very funny one. But, you know, don't want to fall foul of any of those new online crazy rules they keep coming up with every 5 minutes. Yeah, so that was all I can think of at the moment. Come on. What's my all-time favorite? Ah, The Prodigy. Yeah, that's good to work to. Yeah, and I go through phases of that because when I grew up in the '90s, right, and The Prodigy, they were like that was what the cool kids listened to. Not now, no, but then definitely. So I've definitely done some work to The Prodigy, but I go through phases where I'm like, oh, I should listen to The Prodigy. Gives me that energy. You know, like it just oh yeah, fills me with energy, and I'm yeah, but also tends to influence my movements to be more robotic. So that's an interesting one, really. I would advise anybody that paints, and especially if you're, you know, an expressive painter like me, where you're more about painting your feelings and emotions and energy, and you get that onto the canvas or onto the page. Uh, yeah, just keep messing around with that genre on that playlist, and you've got to be eclectic. You've got to, you know. I often listen to country music, not by choice, as well. That's because I share playlists with friends. So if you're on any particular streaming service, you know, for music, and you can share playlists, it's a really good way of accessing other people's um, consciousness, energy, just sharing that and expressing it, and because the thing is, if you just keep repeating yourself over and over again and doing the same thing over and over again, day in day out, one, you'll get very good at it, and two, it will be bloody boring because you'll just lose any exciting outside perspective, outside influence. You need these things. You need to work with people. You're part of the zeitgeist. Well, we're all part of the zeitgeist. We're all part of the human experience, and by denying that contact with other humans, you become insular. And, you know, I mean, with the exception of H.P. Lovecraft, nothing good ever came from someone who was insular. Well, there's probably a few more examples that someone could probably think of, but me at the moment, no. So I hope that answered all your questions. Oh yeah, and how can I forget honorable mention Motorhead. If I need a big pick me up and I need some energy, Motorhead. Because life is best lived loud. Anyway, hope you guys have a fantastic week or weekend or century. And I hope if you're watching back this in a few years' time, we're not gone to nuclear war, because believe it or not, that's a thing people are bothered about now. Crazy times. Crazy times, crazy people. The only thing that makes sense is to get that paintbrush out, get some, you know, palette knives, and you start pounding canvas with those palette knives. I think I'll take that as a new catchphrase. Remember, pound canvas. Take care.